and always try and look for help, ask for help. You'd be surprised, a lot of people would want to help.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Headspace where we discuss different mental issues. Today we have Henny, our guest expert, and Serge as our guest speaker.
Hi, my name is Henny. I'm a clinical psychologist at Promises Healthcare. So I see children, adolescents and adults with various mental health conditions.
Hi, I'm Serge. I'm a fashion media student.
Thanks so much for making time to come down today. So today we're going to be discussing specifically on depression. So depression is becoming increasingly, common. However, it's still a stigma in the Asian communities. The older generation still seem to think of depression as a weakness in society. I'm sure, you guys have experienced this kind of sentiments before. So today we're going to be discussing more about this issue. So to start things off, what is depression?
Depression is a type of mood disorder that's characterized by persistent feelings of sadness or loss of interest with related changes that impact an individual's capacity to function.
So how can we identify a person struggling with depression, and how would they usually react to people around them when you talk about mental health?
It's not all the time that we see someone with depression showing it. Sometimes you can't really see it, but sometimes you see that there's this persistent low mood, there's more withdrawal, so they wouldn't want to attend social engagements, activities. There could be also this persistent feeling of tiredness, a lack of energy. Yeah, and so you can see that sometimes there might be a change perhaps in school or work functioning.
That's true. A lot of people are very good at hiding their emotions, right? Yeah.
Can closed-off personality be a reason some people get depression as well?
But I think it's not so straightforward. Some people do prefer, being alone, and being alone doesn't mean feeling lonely. All right, so some people prefer having their own space. Definitely, I think if someone is feeling lonely but still isolating themselves, maybe it's to think about what other factors are there. Whether it's depression or it could be something else.
How does negative emotions manage to overwhelm these people?
Feeling isolated or lonely, that's very overwhelming for most of us because it feels like you're the only one having to go through this. It depends on what kind of thoughts that come in with the negative emotions that can really overwhelm a person with no support.
Is it true that more and more youths are getting depressed?
Right, so definitely we see the rates going up, but I think that will also apply to other mental health conditions as well, not just depression.
So researchers from IMH have said that there are more people getting depressed. Could this be because of more awareness about this topic?
Definitely, I think with increased awareness, it means that people are more able to recognize that it's an issue and therefore seek help. So there's more diagnosis being made, and therefore we see an increased prevalence rates for depression.
I believe that COVID-19 actually kind of made this more prominent because people are getting isolated more and they've been feeling a disconnect. It's been harder to connect with people, right, during this period in time. Yeah, so what are your thoughts about this?
Definitely, again, COVID has had quite a huge impact on the general population. Different stresses that come along with COVID. I think with a lot of uncertainty, we're not sure, for example, when circuit breaker is going to end, when are we having more restrictions or when they are being lifted, the impact on jobs, income. COVID definitely had, I think, an impact on mental health of the general population. It's been quite a stressful time for everyone.
Right. And I think people are generally feeling more lonely because they cannot meet their friends, right? And a lot of people stay on their own, or if they don't have any siblings or anyone to talk to, it can be very isolating.
So isolation, I think, it is a symptom of depression, but also can increase the risk of depression.
So Serge, I know that you've suffered from depression before. Would you like to share how you suspected that you were having depression?
Damn, okay. This is
tough question.
It's bringing me back, yeah. So when I first recognized the traits, I think one of them was really trying to sleep as much as I can, in the night and in the day. Average person would just sleep around 8 hours, right? And I would try to force myself to sleep as much as I can. For me, it was because when I go to sleep, I dream, and dreaming felt a lot nicer than real life.
Yes, that's definitely one of the symptoms of depression. It could be insomnia, or that we find that people end up sleeping a lot more.
So apart from that, what were your daily life routine?
Oh yeah, super depressing. I would just try to stay in bed as much as I could. Like, I barely ate. And if I did eat, I would eat like trash, you know, like I would eat snacks and stuff and not real food. Yeah, and I would just feel really, really bad physically, and like mentally it was even worse. Most of the time it was sleeping and eating very little and trying to find as much escape from reality as much as I could.
That sounded like quite a difficult time for you. Definitely, we see that with depression, you know, people often find it's hard to get out of bed. There's this real stuckness about being able to do things that they feel that they should or they need to.
So I'm sure to many people, you seem like a very confident model on Instagram, and it just shows how hard it is, you know, to differentiate when someone is not feeling well, or like just to be that aware. Because of that and what you like portray on social media, you know, it's not that easy for people to know. I'm just curious, during that time, do you have a support system?
No, I actually did not have, honestly. I still don't really have a very strong support system right now. But ever since that time, which was like 6-ish years ago, I've managed to build a pretty good, strong foundation for myself. And what I've learned is that I have to take the steps by myself first, like the first initial baby steps. It was very difficult. The first step is always the hardest step, but for me, it was literally taking one step outside of my house. It sounds really lame. It's just taking one step out of the house, right? And that was it. That was like the goal for the day. But that was what started me getting a lot better, because I started taking more steps, slowly but surely, right? And eventually I tried to open up to people. They didn't really know that I was going through a lot, just mostly because they didn't really see me. But eventually when I got to the point where I could try to help myself by asking people for help, it did help, right? There were people that wanted to help, but I also understand that it's not always like that for everyone, and it's gonna be very hard, but it's worth it. It's worth taking all these little steps and trying over and over and over again until you get better. We can, you know, it's a thing that no one is alone in. There's a lot of people going through this, so I think you just, you know, hold on, ganbare.
So for you, what was the most effective method to overcoming depression?
Overall, behind the whole action was trying really hard to start loving myself and trying for myself. I think before then, like before who I am now, I used to hate myself a lot. I used to think the worst of myself. You know, I would look in the mirror and I would think that I am like the worst person ever, but trying to love yourself eventually got me to a point where I can say that I do love myself, and that really helped me become who I am today. And I would say I'm a lot stronger than I was before, like mentally and physically and spiritually. I guess you could say it's like fake it till you make it, you know? Like I didn't actually love myself, but I wanted to. And so I pretended like I did, but eventually I did. Yeah.
So you made it. That's good. Proud of you.
Thank you.
For taking all the baby steps.
Right.
Yes, I think, you know, trying to love yourself is harder than we think it is. I think people don't realize that. But I think what might also be helpful is to think about why we are so resistant to that idea. I mean, you've mentioned like your friends, talking to people who find it difficult to do that. It's really understanding, I guess, what's difficult about it, what's scary about it, what they think might happen if we do that, and really thinking about, okay, what's the first step, just like you did, you know, what's the first tiny step that we could do to show some appreciation to ourselves.
So do you think that depression is treatable?
Yes, depression is treatable. Oftentimes there's therapy, there's also medication, there's also both. You know, through therapy and or medication, people do learn to manage better, their moods do stabilize. It's still, I think, a long process where, you know, there will still be stresses that come up, but it's really, you know, maybe, you know, in therapy they would learn more helpful coping strategies. They know what works for them, and they'll try to apply them, so it makes it easier over time.
If you don't mind me asking, did you go through any therapy or seek help, professional help?
So initially, I didn't think that people cared, right? Like I thought I was going through this whole thing alone and nobody would understand. But eventually, because I wasn't going to school a lot at the time, the school asked me to go for counseling. And the first counselor, not very good, but the second counselor, that was like the counselor's intern, was someone that was like actually trying to like get to the bottom of this whole thing. And I thought I was just going to end my life. I was like, okay, you know what, I'm just gonna full on send it, tell this guy that, because he did say if I wanted to commit self-harm, he has to tell people, but I was like, but he got it, you know. I was like, okay, I'm going to tell him everything, tell him my whole story, since I'm going to like, you know, anyway. But like, when I did that, oddly, I actually felt better. I really do think it's about the person that you talk to. Like in my case, right, I had the first counselor I talked to wasn't really it for me, didn't really help me much. Second one, it definitely helped. So I think it takes trial and error, right, with some people sometimes. Like for someone like me, super introverted at the time, I would have only tried once. And I know there's a lot of people who would only try things once, right, especially at that state of mind. But try again, and always try and look for help, ask for help. You'd be surprised, a lot of people would want to help.
Do you have any words of advice for the viewers who are watching and are feeling like they're going through something similar?
Well, depression is real. It is treatable. There are a lot of resources out there. There are a lot of people who are willing to help and support, but it's really also about taking that first step. So thinking about what's that first tiny step that we can take.
What about you, Serge?
I can't give like professional advice. I can only talk from a
what you've experienced.
Yeah, like a personal perspective. At the bottom of it all, try for yourself, you know, like it's about loving yourself, but even if you're not at that yet, try. It is like the smallest thing that you could probably do for yourself. Like, I want to give an example of how small I went back then. Okay, you have to bear with me, it's very cheesy, but it really did help. So, one of the ways that I tried to help myself by like noticing very small things, right, and like how to take in love for myself was, I remember taking the bus, and there was like leaves on the ground, and it was like swirling, right? So I was like looking at the wind, and I was like, damn, that's like energy right there. That's some sort of like, you know, there's some sort of push and pull, and I just related that to, you know, the universe, love and stuff. So I was like, that is something that I can try and take off.
So Serge, thank you so much for sharing. I hope that, you know, the viewers find comfort, you know, knowing that there are people out there who also experience how they are feeling. And, you know, thank you so much for sharing that there are so many resources out there available. You are not alone, you guys. There are a lot of people who want to help. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Headspace. Remember to like and subscribe and watch our latest video. We'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!